Well, good afternoon, everyone. It's good to see everybody again, and excited to be back getting ready for a game. Last week was a good week. We had, on an open week, did a lot of stuff with our younger players, worked a little bit of Iowa State as well, but focused a decent amount on our young guys, and then gave them the weekend off so they could recharge their batteries and get themselves as healthy as they can get, and had a good workout yesterday. For about an hour and 20 minutes or so of a practice, and we'll get back into our padded stuff today on Tuesday and have kind of a normal week leading up to Saturday. We're going to play a really good football team in Iowa State that we know well, and they know us well. So we've got to do a great job of coming up with game plans and most importantly, being able to execute on both sides of the ball and in special teams. So looking forward to a great crowd, looking forward to a great evening. To play football. It's going to be a great atmosphere.
Anyone on the roster that hasn't played yet this year that kind of opened your eyes a little bit in the off week?
Probably Crew Jackson that might be able to provide us some spark somewhere, whether it's on special teams or a little bit on defense. I thought he had a really good week. I thought Tyrone Hall, although he's played, started to understand more and more of our system, and I think Tyrone can be a guy that can be a factor for us. Those two guys kind of stick out for us, one on each side of the ball.
Is it a situation that Skylar can get healthier as the year goes on, or is this something he's going to deal with?
I think he's going to deal with it. He's going to have the brace on. I don't know how long, but I know it's going to stay on. But he felt a ton better yesterday. Just he practiced on Tuesday, Wednesday, and a little bit on Thursday of last week. Not a ton of repetitions, but practiced some. And I asked him, when we had our meeting yesterday, and he said, no, just the weekend off and him continuing to do rehabilitation. He's got to always continue to take care of his body, and he said he felt pretty fresh yesterday.
I know you always emphasize special teams, but with the trajectory of these two teams and the way it's going, does that something you place a little bit more emphasis on?
Well, we need to continue to do a good job on special teams. We've had a couple of splash plays the last couple of weeks. We need to be consistent on our coverage teams as well. But without a doubt, trying to find a spark in the return game and then hopefully continue to – I thought Ty punted the ball well last week, and Tatum's continuing to kick the ball really well. So it has to be a big factor for us.
How much has last season's game been discussed?
We discussed it a little bit on Thursday before we left for a little bit of a break. But it's a new season, new group of guys, and I know a lot of guys were at that game, but there's a number of guys that weren't, whether they weren't on the roster or were injured. So try not to put too much into what has gone in the past, and you better focus on the future. And I know our guys are excited about the opportunity.
Can you take away from what their offense was able to do against defense, considering you're running something different now?
Well, the running back's an exceptional player, and we let him go early, and then had a difficult time containing him. And then once the running game got going for those guys, then the play action pass worked really well. And I think Purdy's a tremendous quarterback that sees the field really well and is a really smart player that puts the ball in the playmaker's hands. And they have a bunch of them, tight ends and wide receivers that can make plays as well. So you can't say against these guys, boy, you just have to stop the run. You have to be able to control the run, but you can't neglect what they can do in the passing game.
And I'm just wondering, as a coaching staff, do you look back at last season much at all, or is that just a weird season that took place along the way?
We don't look at it right now, just simply because we're in the midst of this season. It was still a season. You still have to count it, but we're trying not to look back as much as we are look forward to see how much better we are, not only on the field but off the field. And part of that was out of some of the guys' control too. We just didn't have a ton of bodies last year, and we're focused on this year and continuing to improve. And like we talked at the end of last week, I believe our best football is in front of us this year as Skylar gets healthier, as we continue to learn more about ourselves on defense, that I'm excited about the next 7 weeks.
Do you feel like Skylar's at a point where he'll be more comfortable trying to run the ball this time
Yeah,
around?
I believe so. I think each week he's going to. I don't know how much he will. Everything is just a little dictated on how people play the quarterback run, because some people can take the quarterback run away, and some people can make you run it as within their defensive scheme. And I think he feels more comfortable. I know he does. He needs to be able to run the ball for us a little bit, probably not as much as we'd ask Will to do it, but it has to be a threat. It can't be, well, we're not going to run some of our quarterback series. We have to be able to do that with him.
I know you mentioned Jake Rubley was a guy you get a chance to look at a little bit more. Just what were your observations of him?
He did a really nice job. He's learning. He's throwing the ball really well. He's feeling more comfortable in the surroundings of our offense. But he's still a young player that we're fortunate we have some older guys that he can continue to learn from those guys.
Another thing mentioned last week, maybe simplifying some things a little bit on defense. Do you feel like you were able to do that during the bye week?
Yeah, we talked about that. We did some things in the limited practice time we had with the older guys, and then the younger guys, we just worked all of our base stuff. It still comes down to what we talked about at length last week of being able to get off blocks and being able to tackle, and making sure that we know our correct leverage angles on tackling, as well as the ability to just block, destruct, and get off and run to the football.
With teams short punting you, how can you take advantage of that situation?
With them, what? I'm sorry.
Kind of short punting you to keep away from Brooks.
You got to be able to field them for starters. You almost gain a first down if you can field a 32-yard punt or a 35-yard punt, because people can bang it 45 and 50 yards. The operation time that we've seen from snap to kick so far in our first 5 opponents, as well as ourselves, doesn't lend itself to have many opportunities to block kicks. Everybody's getting so much better at the operation time. Randon's operation time with Ty is so quick right now. A lot of that we're seeing as well. So we're trying to set up some returns against people. We still have to be able to pressure people in case there is a bobbled snap or in case the timing is off. But, we're continuing to try to win outside. That's the biggest thing we have to do on punt returns is people have really good what we call gunners that run down there and force fair catches. We've got to do a great job against those guys.
And what kind of asset is Reggie Stubblefield given his versatility?
A big asset. He's practiced last week. He'll practice this week. I think the bye week did him some good. It wasn't just a hand. There were some other things that he was fighting through, and he's, I think, healthier. And he's such a smart football player. It gives us another experienced guy out there that can, whether it's direct traffic or tell guys based on different things that he sees offensively what could be coming from a play standpoint. So Reggie's a really versatile guy that's got really good experience.
Iowa State, they were ranked earlier in this season. They were ranked as high as number 7, and 2 tough losses have dropped them out of the rankings. How much of a factor does it make in going into the matchup of whether they're ranked or not?
Not at all. Absolutely none. I think probably Matt would tell you the same thing. I think rankings are something that nobody controls. I know they're a really good football team, and the 2 losses they've had, I think they would tell you they felt like they probably should have won both games. But that's how the parity of college football. It's you get games in the fourth quarter, and you got to find ways to win.
Landry had a good game on last Saturday against Oklahoma. What does he bring to your team as both a player and as a person?
Well, he's a great leader for starters. He's up for the Campbell Award, the academic Heisman, and he's well deserving of that. Does everything right off the field, in the community, in the classroom, and that rubs off on young players. Young players can see that the hard work you put in can be really rewarding on the field as well as off the field. And just his health this year, he's healthy and he's able to play the way that I know that Landry expects to play, the way I saw a young Landry in 2019 play that he couldn't do in 2020 due to his injuries.
He's a bit of a legacy player for this program. How do you value kind of those kind of legacy families and recruiting and keeping that going?
Well, it's huge because of he and his dad and his brother having great careers here, and they bleed K-State, and we have a number of kids like that on our team. We've got a lot of dads that have their sons on this football team, and I think it means a ton to the families. And we've said this a lot, that we play for the people that have put the purple on before us, and it's cool to have some of those legacies come back and have their sons join our program, and we hope we make them proud. They've built this great facility that we have with the hard work, blood, sweat, and tears that they put into it.
Chris, if you remove last year's game from the equation, typically Iowa State, Kansas State is one of the closer matchups in this conference. Now, you've been in it for 2 years, going to the third. What's your take on that? Why do you think these programs always are in these close games?
I think both teams are very physical. I think both teams have playmakers. It still comes down to being able to make the plays at the right time. We had an opportunity to answer a score last year and didn't do it, and then we turned the football over and it got away from us. The year before, we were able to capitalize on some turnovers when we were able to win at home a couple years ago. But they're tough because you have to be able to run the football against them, and they do a great job of stopping the run, and you have to be able to slow the run down for them against them. And I think they're two teams that know each other really well, and we spend an awful lot of time in off-season self-scouting them. They're good enough staff. They probably self-scout a little bit of everybody, but I think when teams know each other pretty well and have playmakers that make plays, you get for competitive games.
As a coach who appreciates the tight end position, what is it about the ones that they have that makes that a difficult matchup?
Because they can do everything. They block at the point of attack. They can flex out and be wide receivers. They can start in the backfield and motion out. They just do so many things with these guys. And both of the two that Kohler and Allen are the two. I know there's other ones, but those are the two that stick out to me as far as just making such a difference for their football team, because they can do so many things. And you can't say, well, if they're in two tight ends, they must both either be on the line of scrimmage or in the backfield. These guys are wide outs as well. And, they do a tremendous job of utilizing those guys' versatility within their offense.
And I know this isn't probably on your front burner right now, but with all the rapidly changing dynamics of recruiting right now, with extra eligibility, and now you can add transfers and go above 25. How do you just handle that as a head coach right now? How much more planning is involved when you're trying to?
We talked about it last week, but you still don't know what your roster is. That's what people don't realize, is you still have to have your roster scholarship guys at 85, and so it just depends on who comes back. It depends on who leaves your program. There's going to be somebody that leaves our program that we don't know about right now, and then those are the things that, and you can't control that on October 12th or 11th or whatever the heck it is. Those are the things that play out. But we have a really good recruiting department that just kind of lays out the plan of where we need help at, whether it's young players or somebody via the transfer portal, as well as what happens in December, what happens in April for that matter. And so it's something that's just always evolving.
Iowa State obviously had very high expectations coming into the year. They've dropped a couple of games, which probably surprised some. Do they seem like the same kind of team to you that they were last year?
Yeah, absolutely. Because they have experience. They have guys that have played and won a Fiesta Bowl. They have a really good coaching staff. And it's hard to win college football games. I think Baylor's a really good football team. I think everybody's seeing that now. And Baylor did some really good things against them on both sides of the ball. And Iowa, they're the second-ranked team in the country right now for a reason. And that's a tough game for Iowa State right now in that rivalry. And so they've lost two games that are against two pretty good teams, just like we've lost two games against really good teams. And it's hard to win college games against really good opponents, and you have to play your best, and to do that you have to be able to prepare Monday through Friday. You can't just show up on Saturday. And so that's what we have to do this week, is have a great week of preparation and great week of game planning, and have our guys truly understand the game plan so we can execute at a high level.
You think back to that game last year, just how dire were the straits personnel-wise for you guys that you were dealing with?
It was tough, but you know what? I'm glad we played, especially for those kids that aren't with us anymore. If not, they'd have lost a football game. And I look at a kid like Brock Monty. I'm so glad Brock Monty got to play another football game. And that was our goal, is to play as many games as we could, and we played them all.
Talk some about the similarities between your defense and Iowa State's. Was when you were making that change, was that a team that you kind of took a look at or patterned after?
Yeah,
at all?
you bet. We did watch Iowa State, and we've watched them a lot anyway. There's some similarities, but there's quite a few differences as well as this is their fourth, fifth year in the system, and so they're doing some things a lot differently than we are. But without question, their success in this league, there's a number of teams that have had some three-down success in this league to try to eliminate some of the RPO game. That's the number one reason why people are doing it, is to eliminate some of the RPO game. And so you're going to give up some runs. You're going to give up some 8 to 10 yard plays. You're trying not to give up the 60-yard play, and that's one of the reasons that we looked at making the change. And I assume that's a reason that when Matt brought it into the Big 12, they thought, boy, people are trying to score a bunch and get the ball out on the perimeter. You just have more speed on the field.
Also, I noticed Wayne Jones is listed as a start on the strong side. What's he done to put himself there?
It's just been consistent. I think Wayne's been a starter here. Wayne's a good football player, and they're both going to play. I mean, whether you have one or the other, they're both going to play. Both he and Henny are going to see time there. Reggie's going to see time there, just based on the personnel. I won't get caught up a whole lot in starters. I know kids do, and I know it's important, but it's what you do and how much you can contribute on Saturdays. But Wayne's a good football player, and he's earned an opportunity.
Chris, you mentioned believing your best football is ahead of you. Obviously, the end game is getting the win, but maybe what are some of the primary things that you're really looking at that constitute having your better football ahead of you?
I think it's pretty obvious that when you have a 6-year senior quarterback coming back and seeing how he handles and manages a game and has the ability to throw the football all over the field and get multiple people involved, you're naturally going to be better, especially on offense, as he gets more comfortable again. He missed a few weeks in there of practice, but as he gets more comfortable with the timing, more comfortable with looks and things he sees, naturally, that's where I believe our best football is in front of us on offense. On defense, us continuing to try to do some things creatively with the defense we're running, as well as simplifying, but just trying to get guys fresh and healthy so we can get off blocks and run and make plays. Khalid Duke's not coming back, and that's a huge loss for us because of what he was able to do within this system. We kind of designed it originally around him because of his versatility, being a D end as well as a linebacker, and a lot of teams don't have 2 and 3 Khalid Dukes, and we're one that doesn't. So now we have to do a good job as coaches of putting our guys in the best position to be successful. Yep.
Skylar mentioned during the last game, before the fourth down call to Phillip Brooks, the touchdown play, that you and Courtney Messingham were asking him which plays he liked, and he said he really liked that one. I'm sure that happens all the time, but how much trust do you have to have in your quarterback to say, hey, let's put it in your hands, why don't we let you call this one?
A lot, but you earn that trust, and I'm asking him an awful lot. What are things you like? Make sure Coach Klein knows. Make sure Mess knows, because Mess sees it from up above, same as Colin. But Skylar's seeing it from ground level, as well as the communication that he's having with the skill kids on offense is really high level on the sideline. Of Phillip saying, Skylar, you look the other way. I can beat him on this route, and not I'm open, but I can beat him back inside. And that happened to us on a 4th down play where Skyler came back to Phillip after a conversation on the sideline, and we beat a kid for a slant against Oklahoma for about a 6-yard gain on 4th and 4. Those are the conversations that you trust guys that have played an awful lot of football and know each other really well, that they need to have no problem. And we talk about ownership in the program. They need to have no problem saying to an offensive coach, hey, I like this call. But on that particular play, we had one play called, and that's when we called timeout, and went back and looked and talked about it and said, hey, we've practiced this play where we flipped it out to Phillip all week long, potentially on a 2-point play, and we were at 2 or 3 yard line. It was a perfect time.
Coach, talking about Khalid Duke and the unique nature of his game, and earlier you mentioned Crew Jackson, who's a kid whose measurements don't really fit. Where do you have him playing?
He'd be playing the same position as Khalid. You know, he's 6'5" or 6'6". I don't know if he's 205 pounds. He'll be 240 pounds here in a couple of years. Tremendous athlete. But it's like Will Howard or Jake Rubley. Can you put a freshman out there and play him a full game? Probably not. He's learning our system. He's learning how to be a college student. But the off week gave us a chance to look at guys like him, look at guys like Tyrone Howell, give them more repetitions. And whether that's 10 plays, maybe it's 50 plays, 2, 3, 4 weeks down the line, we always have to continue to find guys that can help us. And he's one of those guys.
In 2019, you found ways to have complementary carries around 3 running backs.
Yep.
How close do you feel like you're to that?
Well, we need to, and even that, you could add the 4th with a quarterback with some of the QB run game, but a lot of things have to click. We have to be able to get the ball to multiple running backs. We have to be able to get the ball to receivers on some jet sweeps and stuff as well. But we also have to look and see, okay, what's open? What are they giving us? You better be really patient against Iowa State, because they're not going to give you a huge play very often. They're not going to give you a 50-yard run or a 50-yard pass. You have to be really patient and get yourself in 3rd and short and not have a negative play, have a holding, have something where you're in 2nd and 14 or 3rd and 10, because then they really are able to dictate what they want to do.
Bronson Massey's availability for Saturday?
I would say doubtful. He didn't practice yesterday. We'll see what happens today. But right now I would say doubtful. I think everybody else that played against OU should be able to play. Bebe was back at practice. Reggie was. So I think Bronson's the only one that off the top of my head, I think is in doubt.
Have you got kind of Nate Matlack penciled into some situational positions? Or
yeah, Nate is. Spencer Trussell will play quite a bit more with Bronson potentially out. I would say Spencer and Felix and Nate and even Cartez a little bit, getting some more snaps in there. Tyrone Tellini. We're still going to play an awful lot of defensive line. We're just going to have to mix and match a little bit more.
Chrissy's done it a long time. How do you deal with Mike Rose? Because he means everything to that defense.
He does. He's a terrific football player, and he's the long athletic body to the field that you like, that can take away a lot of plays with his length, as well as many snaps as he has, how smart he is. And he can play in the box as well, and that's something that at that position, that's similar to what Khalid could do with having length and well as being a box player. And so I think he's one of their unheralded stars on defense that really makes that defense go. They've got a bunch of great complementary parts because of so many guys returning, but he wreaked havoc on us last year and made a number of plays, and so we obviously need to know where he's at and make sure that we account for him.
I'd ask one, too, about Iowa State's personnel with Brees. He seems to be about as patient running now and yet very productive. What are the challenges with him because of his size?
Yeah, trying to keep him corralled and not let him bounce outside, because that's when he can hit it between the tackles, don't get me wrong, and he's a punishing runner. He's a big kid. But what we don't want him to do is have patience and us lose patience on the perimeter, and all of a sudden he bounces it outside because he's tough to bring down in the open field with defensive backs, and he's proven that in a lot of the big explosive plays that we've seen is him being patient in the hole, maybe not finding something, bouncing outside. We just watched when he had one about 60 or 70 against Oklahoma State last year, just bouncing it outside, and you can take it the distance. So we have to be able to try to keep him pinned in, and that's difficult with their scheme.